Hello everybody and welcome back to another round of Modern Melee in the booth. As usual, Marco and Ginko.
Hello everyone!
Today's matchup is Esper Reanimator versus Fishes versus Merfolk.
Fish! Merfolks, not the most popular deck in Modern, but definitely a great contender in a good pilot's hand. What I'm saying, you need to be a good player to even be competitive with this deck.
Yeah, but definitely one that has their resurgence up in the recent times, and I do think this is a viable strategy in Modern, and as we have been saying recently, also a cheap one, or and not as expensive as Modern decks tend to be.
Yes, but if you want to be competitive with this deck, that means you want to play subtleties, you want to play force negations in your sideboard, you want to play vials in your main board, and these cards they do cost.
That is also true. Yes.
So it's not the most expensive deck, probably mid-range with its price, and very difficult to pilot. There has been some resurgence. I wouldn't say, at least not in online Magic, there was a resurgence, but in paper Magic, there's definitely, at least in our LGS and in some cities around our LGS, there is a lot of Merfolk player, and I think in paper generally there are some Merfolk enjoyers that will always play this. This deck.
This is one of those decks that is eternal, as is Jund, and it will always have its quote-unquote fan base or people that like to play them.
Exactly.
And Merfolk, being the oldest, one of the oldest tribes in the whole game, will always have their population renewed, so to speak, always have new toys for their wants and needs. And we have seen in Modern Horizons 2 several of those toys being printed and definitely refurbished and re-engaged the deck even further. And this spells a little bit of trouble for the Reanimator player, as Spreading Seas claimed, I do believe, Rafin's Tower, a triome for the Esper Shard, and now there is only a plains and an island.
Yeah, it claimed the black mana, very important mana for Reanimator, and I think the Reanimator player is not very pleased that only could tell us that he has Persist in his hand for that pesky dragon Archon in his graveyard.
And one of the Merfolks just trotting into the red zone, banging for 2, and the Esper player just bravely blocking with their face. Turn 3 for the Murktide for the Merfolk player, not the Murktide player. Will it be one of the Merfolk lords? But I do not believe so. Oh no, the 2 mana was tapped for the spreading seeds. Yes, of course. And this is a removal spell for the Ether Vial. In response, Silvergill Adept getting vialed in, drawing a card, and the Ether Vial getting exiled.
Now, very debatable if the Reanimator doesn't have the third land. Wasn't it better to remove Spreading Seas?
This is also interesting to note. This is a debate of whether your cards in hand are good enough on their own or they need help. So if you think you can just weather this pressure on the board, which is currently 4 per turn, and you have something like Faithful Mending or something else, you are probably to have your mana taken, to have your mana be operational. But if you do not, then probably something like removing the Spreading Seas would have been more appropriate.
But we see Tide Shaper, of course, so removing that Spreading Seas would end up doing nothing, unfortunately. And there is finally a fast land, so we will see some horses on the board.
Yeah, and the horses are coming.
There we have it.
This is Archon of Cruelty.
The ultimate
does,
comeback
yeah,
card.
it does everything. So you play this deck to get this card on the battlefield for cheap and by any means necessary.
Yeah.
And the means are quite good because the opponent discards the card, the opponent loses 3 life, the opponent sacrifices a creature, or if they cannot, sacrifices a planeswalker. You draw a card, you gain 3 life, and of course you get to have a 6/6, or in this case a 5/5 permanent on the battlefield that will do all of it again on your next attack. So this is a Merfolk Trickster, probably tapping down the Archon, losing its abilities, so it is just a vanilla 5/5, but it is vanilla 5/5 up until the opponent's next turn, where it is able to attack. Now, the Merfolk are relentless. They will just keep coming and will probably have their lords about them. So this can well and good be, if not a lethal attack, then setting up for the lethal attack.
Definitely. And that's the scary thing about Merfolks. Their lethal comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, so as we have said before, their attacks do not come linearly, they come exponentially, because each lord not only buffs one creature but buffs all of the creatures. So it's 2 damage, then it's 4 damage, then it's 8 damage, and then it's just you're dead.
Exactly. The thing about Merfolks and why they are not the greatest thing in Modern right now, there is a lot of decks that don't care about your board.
That is true.
Namely Living End, one of the top tier decks, still top tier decks.
Rhinos as well. They have 4/4s on turn 2 or 3, and they will just keep coming and beating you down. And their removal spells, albeit not as efficient, they are extremely good at dealing with ground creatures.
Of course, elementals, full jam-packed with removal
of any and all varieties.
Yeah.
So there is a Glasspool Mimic trying to copy the Silvergill Adept, and there is some discussion about how it does so. If the opponent needs to reveal another Merfolk from their hand or not, because and also what happens if the creature gets killed in response. And here we see the Oracle text on the Glasspool Mimic being explained on the rules text as well, so hopefully they will sort things out shortly. Meanwhile, let's talk about the Esper Reanimator. So I quite like this deck because it is such an unique take on a modern deck. Not only because it has been facilitated completely out of Modern Horizons 2, but also because it uses some detrimental strategies and some strategies that just usually are not viable. And this is 2-for-1ing yourself. It wants to pitch black cards to grief early and often, which is 2-for-1, and because you pitch one card and then you grief the opponent, and it's basically a Thoughtseize for their one card. And usually this is not sustainable. But with a card such as Archon of Cruelty, all of it is just does not matter. Because this card will just jam your hand full of cards again, dwindle your opponent's life total. It flies. It does everything you want a card to do in the matchup, especially the one where board is of utmost importance.
It's true. It's true. I like the archetype, but rather than Esper Reanimator, okay, let's get back to game, because some interesting things are happening with Solitude being pitched in response to the Merfolk player attack.
Yeah.
And
so this is one of the 2-for-1s that we have talked about.
Yeah.
Because Solitude has exiled the Tide Shaper for 2 cards, but more importantly, 1 creature out of the board and 2 damage less.
Mitigating the damage, removing 1 creature from the board, making the Archon ever more, effective. I think that's a great play from the Reanimator player, though it may not look the best, like you remove a 2/2 creature from the board. This 2/2 creature, very, very important for the Merfolk player.
Yeah, exactly. And as we have seen, there is more of the reanimation stuff coming, and one of the reanimation stuff is, I think, in their hand. Oh, this is another Unmarked Grave, and probably getting another Archon, and unearthing the Archon and just tightening the grip ever so slightly with each step.
So Archon, of course, is not the legendary card, or rather, the deck wouldn't work on Archons. Okay, great. Before we start with game number 2, I would like to invite all of you to like, share, and subscribe, and ring the bell notification down below, and leave a comment. And I think I said everything. But yeah, we really appreciate your support, and we are very thankful to get this far, and we want to go even further and expand on the quality and quantity of our videos, and we can't do that without your support. So feel free to subscribe and leave a comment. Thank you very much. Okay.
So very grateful for what you and us have done with this channel. Stay tuned for everything else as we sideboard in an exciting match between our fishes and our giant monsters that are not legendary. Very important.
I see some Force of Negations in the board, already in the board of the Merfolk player, so I imagine...
Maybe in the main board,
Siding out some Flying Fairies. What's the name? The one that goes on adventure.
Oh my god, I cannot remember.
Brain farted. Both
Brazen Borover.
Yes, of course.
That's the name.
Putting it out, if I'm not mistaken, I'm putting a lot of cards in.
So, several of the cards I have seen were Relic of Progenitus, definitely a great card, regardless of the removal spells from the Reanimator side, being exile-based removal that can hit any permanent, but they need it for your Relic of Progenitus, they need it for your Aether Vial, they need it for your fishes, so you can just swarm them and say, do you have an answer? Do you have an answer?
Exactly.
Do you have an answer? And be just relentless and pesky and just have it under your control.
And that's a very, very difficult thing for Esper Reanimator is post-sideboard, because a very generic sideboard usually works against you. Very generic graveyard hate is very effective against you. And that's what I wanted to say during game 1. That's why I prefer the Mark to Blink Reanimator. That deck is very resilient post-sideboard. It plays a lot of removal because it plays black and red. It plays a lot of Blink because it plays white. Pitch Elementals are a lot more effective because you can play also Fury with Solitude and have a very, very scary board even without the
graveyard. Yeah. So definitely this is a more all-in type of situation. But also neither this deck is left to its own devices without a graveyard, because you do not need your graveyard constantly, something like Dredge does. But you need it only half a turn. For example, at your opponent's end step, Fateful Mending, bin the Archon in the graveyard, then your turn, just reanimate the Archon, you're set.
Yeah.
And before that, you could have removed the Relic of Progenitus or Rest in Peace or something and not cared about any of those things. So this is one of the good sides of this graveyard strategy, but I do must agree that definitely the Mardu variant is more resilient to graveyard hate. Be it in form of Relic of Progenitus, be it form of Rest in Peace, or Leyline, or whichever flavor of graveyard hate you prefer.
Exactly.
Maybe Unlicensed Hearse in these trying times.
A very, very, very interesting card, and very popular lately.
Yeah.
And what do you think about Unlicensed Hearse?
Unlicensed Hearse is a great card in specific decks. I do not believe it is the go-to answer to any metagame or go-to answer to any just jam it in every deck. Yeah. I believe this could be an excellent addition to something like Merfolk, something like decks that are capable of crewing it without any help and with all the time, anytime. So if your deck consists of creatures that have 2 or more power, you are basically giving your 6/6 or 8/8 haste.
That's true. The thing that I don't like about the card is I cost 2 mana and I don't remove the whole graveyard.
Yes, but you do have agency about which cards you remove.
That is true, and that is very important. Unlike something like a Relic of Progenitus that doesn't have, targeting option.
Yeah.
And you can target 2 cards, and you can target in response, which is very effective. But again, it's not effective against decks like Living End, which is again a top tier deck in current meta, and I don't see why I would play Unlicensed Hearse instead of Relic of Progenitus or Soul Guide Lantern, which are the cards that are very effective against a top tier meta deck.
I will give you answer. Pressure. None of those cards also do double duty as pressuring.
That is true.
And in a lot of cases, the best way to deal with an opponent that has graveyard synergies such as Living End is not to always have an answer to their graveyard, it is to just get them killed. And if you can just get your Unlicensed Hearse to a 6/6 or an 8/8, which is not so hard to do, especially with activating it every turn and having your opponent will have their graveyard almost always full of cards for you to choose. This is something that you can just do, swing twice and get them dead.
Well, okay, I'm not the biggest fan of the card. I'm still not convinced it's a good card, but never mind. Let's go back to the game. This is Force of Negation, pitching a Merfolk Lord, countering March of Otherworldly Light that was targeting Relic of Progenitus. We have a situation where Relic of Progenitus is being played turn 1 against Esper Reanimator. Very, very effective play.
Yeah, but we see also Ether Vial being played down, which is saving grace, but also only 1 land. Silvergill Adept may be having something to say about that, but no other land, and
no second land.
Also, no much pressure.
That is true. I can see their hand. There is another counterspell in the Merfolk player's hand.
Also a Spell Pierce, I believe.
Probably. Might be. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I believe there is a Lord, a Counterspell, and a Spell Pierce, but they do not have a blue color of mana, which is weird to imagine a deck that is full of blue cards and blue lands not having the blue requirements. But this is something actually that comes much more often than one might think in Merfolk decks. Also in decks that have only one color requirement, such as, for example, Death and Taxes or Hammer Time, because you tend to play a lot of white or blue pips in your cards, and you tend to play utility lands such as Urza Saga, or in this case, Mutavault and Cavern of Souls.
Okay, here we have a tapped blue land.
Yeah, this is a Glasspool Shore, Glasspool Mimic being played on the other side, and this is Faithful Mending being played on the end of the opponent's turn, which will do two things. First of all, will mitigate the damage that the Silvergill Adept has done, and second of all, will fill up the graveyard with probably or hopefully relevant spells, and also third, will dig for other answers to Relic of Progenitors.
Okay, another faithful mending being discarded with a land. Of course, you can flashback faithful mendings for 3 mana, which is a great thing. But that relic of progenitors, even with only 1 land, is still being, it's just controlling the whole game, and the reanimator player can't do anything. Well, he can pitch Grief, and pitching Archon, just saying, yeah, okay, I see your Relic of Progenitors. This Archon is better just being pitched.
Yeah, I mean, if it cannot be in the graveyard, it can be in exile, serving the Grief. And we see Vildin Svielun of Sea and Sky, Merfolk Lord being exiled or discarded by the Grief, and 2 counterspells stranded in the hand, but an Ephemerate coming down and exiling and then practically blinking the Grief, taking the one that can be cast with 1 blue mana.
Exactly.
This is a Spell Pierce.
A great selection from the Reanimator player side, saying, okay, so you have 2 counter spells. I don't really care about those, except perhaps for Spell Pierce. Your counter spell, you have only 1 blue mana, and you have nothing else.
Yeah, so there is a board currently, and Svielun will draw cards eventually, because that is what the card does. But it will also be contested by this Ephemerate, which will come down the next turn and strip a relevant card from the opponent's side of the battlefield. Now, if they play it, they will have to tap their mana, and this might be the window that the Reanimator player needs to just get the Archon down, and when the Archon gets down, then all hell breaks loose. Or they will have the card stranded in their hand, and they will just get the Reanimator player will just get to pick the most impactful one with this blink effect.
Exactly. Okay, so a lot of damage in the Reanimator's player's head, deciding to keep that Grief for the Ephemerate target on rebound, but it doesn't look great.
It definitely doesn't look great. This is still winnable. This is still a game that both of them can do. As we said, only 1 stumble or just only 1 half a turn without the active Relic of Progenitors, and we have a game. This is the Ephemerate targeting Grief again before drawing a card. This is all in upkeep, and we will see a counterspell.
Trickster, and I'm not sure what's the middle
another
card.
Silvergill Adept. So Trickster gets put into the bin because this is the most impactful card on this side of the battlefield, because it can be played and disrupt the Archon, as in turn it sideways and make it lose all abilities, making it unable to attack, making it unable to fulfill its trigger once it is on the battlefield. And now we see probably a desperation pitch in another Grief, pitching the Unmarked Grave, which can get stuff into the graveyard, notably. This means that either they have in their hand another Unmarked Grave, or they have something like Persist.
We'll see. So there is this pitched. Okay, it dies.
Yeah, this was a hard ponder on which card to put and take and whatnot. There are still 2 faithful mendings, which means 2 more life, and which means also 2 more looks at something to remove.
Or rather, 4 more life with both.
With both, but I do believe that Relic of Progenitus will gobble up one of them.
Mm-hmm, probably.
And it might look like another Relic of Progenitus in the Merfolk player's hand. So despite their land troubles, Ether Vial is definitely proving its worth in this matchup. Imagine this without Ether Vial.
Yeah, without Ether Vial, game would definitely look a lot different, though I still think that Merfolk player would have an edge, some kind of edge here. Because, I say, this card that was just played
again
is very painful for Esper Reanimator.
Yeah, definitely. So another one just getting played, and this is a faithful mending. Draw 2, discard 2, gain 2 life. So mitigation of life, but this is not how you win the game. So another grief and a fetch land being put down, and we will see if so one of them gets blown up. I do believe this is a little premature.
But yeah, definitely, especially when all of mana is being tapped.
Yes. So this is actually the turn where the reanimator player might want to turn the corner, but we see that they cannot. And this is a 3rd land for the fishy player, and they're not fishy, but they play fish. And this is Silvergill Adept and showing the Merfolk Lord through the Cavern of Souls. Not relevant in this situation, but also the Reanimator player wants to check how many of those Silvergill Adepts the player has played, and the answer is this is the 3rd one. And so another Glasspool Shore being played. This is the 2nd blue land.
And this is a scoop.
And this is a scoop because now there is also counterspell in their hand, and they will be able to get it online, and they do not need anything else on the board.
Exactly.
So 1-1 being after game 2, exciting match so far, definitely back and forth, and we have seen a stumble from both sides a little bit in the terms of mana producers from the Merfolk player, in the terms of just mitigating the graveyard.
Of course, the Merfolk player did one thing great.
Yes.
He, of course, kept the hand with Graveyard Hate.
Yes, with sideboard cards.
Yeah.
Contrary to...
He drew sideboard cards.
Yes.
Amazing.
And this is also something that I wanted to touch upon. So this was a decision, I believe, from the Esper Reanimator player to play March of Otherworldly Light in their own turn. Because they feared something like a Spell Pierce or something else from the opponent's side, because they were tapped out of blue mana. But in doing so, they actually mitigated Force of Negation, which can only be cast on your opponent's turn. So this was a situation... only be pitched on your opponent's turn. So this was a situation where they feared one and they got by another card.
Exactly.
And this is a 50-50 shot, because you probably know that your Merfolk opponent will bring in both if they do not even have them in the main board.
And this is a mistake that a lot of players playing against Merfolk do. They cast some of the cards, some of the spells during their turn when they shouldn't. Because, as I said, if a Merfolk player has a competitive Merfolk deck, he plays those Force of Negations. That's why you see Azorius player playing against Merfolk will never play important spells in his own turn. Always in their turn.
Yeah, that is true. But third game comes along and we see probably a good hand from both players. Maybe something like 7 cards from both.
Is it possible?
I do not believe
in modern
that the Merfolk player is content, because I have seen 2 Ether Vials, 1 land, and some utility spells, and only 1 creature. So this was a slow hand for the Merfolk player, and definitely not a keep, because you do want to keep the Reanimator player suppressed for at least 1 to 2 turns,
Exactly.
because you need your bearings. The same as with several other explosive decks, but this one is explosive on another axis. It doesn't go wide, it doesn't go tall, it just goes all around.
Yeah. On the other side, the Reanimator player keeping 7 hands.
Always a scary thing to
That's
see.
a scary thing. That spells trouble.
Yes. So from the Reanimator side, I do not believe there are any counter spells in this particular variant. There are a lot of discard spells. And seeing, or especially on the play, seeing important and extremely efficient cards that deal with your graveyard from your opponent's side in turn 1, you probably want a lot of discard spells. And you know that, as we said before, Merfolk goes exponentially, not linearly. So each one of those Merfolks you strip out of their hand before they can get to the battlefield is not just the damage they deal on the surface, but also damage amplified by the lore effects.
Okay, so we see a Refine Tower being fetched by the Esper player. I think it's a Refine Tower. It's an Esper Triumph.
It's an Esper Triumph.
And we'll see.
Don't kid ourselves.
Unmarked Grave. Merfolk player saying, "Yeah, you can do it.
That's fine.
Show me that horsey, that flying horsey, that black flying horsey."
Archon in the graveyard, second land from the Merfolk player, and just saying, go, this might be just a ruse, this might be a counterspell, might be a Merfolk Trickster, might be anything else, but a Merfolk Trickster on the Archon is better served as something that will prevent it from just attacking.
Yeah, so I imagine now it's the time to play that counterspell if he has, and there it is.
And this is the Reanimator player just saying, do you have it? Do you have it? Do you have it? And they will keep doing this until they are out of reanimation spells, or until the Merfolk player does something about that Archon in the graveyard.
Silvergill Adept.
And reveal is... we do not see what the reveal is, but they will draw a card, and they have the follow-up of the Ether Vial.
Okay.
Extremely important.
Tapped out. So signaling I don't have nothing, or I have Force of Negation. We'll see. Unmarked Grave being played from the... I think they're yes, of course, they're.
This is an excellent tech in Unburial Rites, which means that you're your Unmarked Grave can get your reanimation spell as well. It is on a 1-turn delay, but it will get there. And this is again one of those do you have it moments. And if they do not have it, you are golden. If they do have it, then you need to work a little bit harder. But the pressure is minimal. We see 19 life for the Esper Reanimator, 20 for the Merfolk player. The Merfolk player is not concerned with their life total. One of the benefits of its mana base, it is not painful at all. Svialoon getting down, 2 damage getting across from the Silvergill Adept, and this will be the moment another land probably being played. And
Unburial,
do you have it?
Right.
Do you have it? Do you have it?
Do you have it?
And if you do not have it, there is an Archon.
I don't think he has it.
I do not think this is not a posture of somebody who has it, whatever it is, and it can be something like a Force of Negation. And I do believe only Force of Negation, because there is only a Mutavault available for mana. And Silvergill Adept going bye-bye. 3 damage up, 3 damage down, card discarded, card drawn, and this is a suspicious amount of white mana being left from the Reanimator's side. Now, I'm not saying, but maybe there is also an Ephemerate.
Ephemerate, a great card, not only to push the ability of Archon further, but also to protect your Archon from being removed.
Even better use of that card. Because your Archon is definitely better alive, and it will get its trigger one way or another.
Svialun attacking doesn't have indestructible. It can get, right?
It can get because 2 mutables can get activated, and one any creature can be put via Ether Vial if I do believe it's on 2, but it will still be a wash.
Well, this is something that Reanimator player said, okay, if you want to activate your mutables, I'm very pleased.
This is Otawara. Bouncing the...
and, of course, there is no Ephemerate in the Reanimator player's hand then, because they just let it happen.
But this is a curious attack, nevertheless, because they did manage to block.
Yeah.
Which is not something that I would let them do if I were in the position of the Merfolk player.
Perhaps they drew Otawara with the attack.
Oh, that is also true. But also they could have done it before the blocks then. Because
that is true. That is true.
Yeah.
That is true.
So this is a unique thing. And we see 6 mana here, which also...
spells trouble for hard-casted Archon.
Not yet, but we definitely can see it soon. And this is not something that comes so rarely that is unheard of, especially with one of them being also already resolved.
Hard-casted Solitude in
main phase.
In main phase. Interesting, and it doesn't target Svialun. No?
It does.
It does. Oh, right.
I do believe it does target Svialun. It definitely should. Because that card has everything.
Very good. Okay. Edge is definitely on the Reanimated play side. Lord being put onto the battlefield.
Yeah, and another one in terms of Glasspool Mimic in the hand. Spell Pierce also I have seen. Maybe some consideration about getting the Ether Vial up, but they have already drawn a card. So there are 2 mutables on the battlefield which are extremely good for the Merfolk player, not only because they are an excellent land, but of course they can also be used as fodder, and also are Merfolk, and this Lord gives Island Walk. And we have several islands on the other side, but one being tapped for animating the other.
Animating.
Yeah, not reanimating. But okay, and this one is a 3/3, basically unblockable because there are islands on the battlefield. And the other one, Glasspool Mimic.
Yes. Of course, copying the Lord.
Yeah, and this is 3 unblockable damage and 4 unblockable damage, so 7 damage coming across. And the Reanimator player says this is fine because I cannot do anything about it, and they will just go in with the Solitude. If I cannot block, I will attack and gain my life this way. So this is extremely interesting now, because there are some cards that just pull this matchup wide open from both sides, and one of them being Merfolk Trickster. This might be in response to attack, so a little bit of timing consideration. So here is another Unmarked Grave. So probably this is the second main, and we will see if the life total get corrected, or is this somewhere after the whole scenario. I'm not certain what.
I'm not certain what happened.
Yeah.
But I think that Trickster was played before the attack and was tapping it.
Okay.
I guess.
Yeah.
A bit late, but this can happen in in paper magic.
And I believe I see an Archon, I see
Archons and
Persist, and this is a good one, if I may say so.
Yeah. This is another tide-turning horsey.
Yeah, and no mana for that crucial spell Pierce. This is also huge. This is still not over, because another Lord, and this is all, Oh yeah, now they are trying to see. I do believe that the damage from Solitude was not taken down. If it connected, I'm not certain, but
as I said, I think that Trickster tapped the Solitude before the attack, and the Merfolk player now goes all in, hoping to get something. Not sure if this is even lethal.
I think this is a lot of damage.
They do have, that's not lethal. Thankfully, Ether Vial didn't Vial in
another Lord. Yeah. And this is probably a turn where a lot of things need to happen, and this is at least 6 life gained back. First of it will be from the Archon trigger, then one Mutavault biting the dust instead of the 2 lords, crucial for the unblockability of the Island Walk.
Yes, exactly.
And we see now 9 to 6. The turntables have turned because this is a 5 and a 3, and all of them get some life. And this is a removal spell on one of those pesky lords, exile effect, and another lane being played, probably never being cracked, but does not matter. I see an Ephemerate here, and I'm wondering if you are to play the Ephemerate in your main phase before your opponent can attempt an attack, but we see here a scoop because there is not enough damage and there is a lot of power on the other side of the battlefield. 2-1 going to the Esper Reanimator.
Very grindy match. Very dicey on both sides, winning and losing.
Back and forth in a heartbeat. I am actually surprised at the redundancy and resilience of the Merfolk. I would recommend this deck to anybody who is a fan of fishes, but my heart definitely goes to the Esper Reanimator because this is exactly the style of deck I like to play.
Notably, the Merfolk player was a good player, a good pilot of the deck.
Yes.
Very scary at times.
Yes.
He did some things that I didn't expect, and I was like,
you can do this with this deck.
Yeah. But also great decision making from the Reanimator player that allowed him to bounce back and to take a win here.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I hope you all enjoyed this match. If you did, like, share, and subscribe. We greatly appreciate your support, and of course, we'll come back with even more content.
Thank you all for watching. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.